Hi everyone, and welcome to this video. I've been reading a few chess books, and among them have been Boris Avruch's 1d4 opening repertoire, and it's an extensive book. Well, there's two of them, 2 volumes, but it goes over pretty much everything 1d4. I was using it as a reference and using it a bit, and I've been just using it more and more, I suppose. So I've decided to do a video series on that. Which will be probably quite extensive. It'll probably be about 5 parts. I'm going to start off with the Catalan. There's then going to be the Slav, etc., Indian defenses, everything. So, yeah, everything you'll basically need for 1d4. And I'm going to start by aiming to do the first 10 moves for all the variations. So to have a look at the variations, the reasoning and logic behind them, and start off with the first 10 moves. So get you in a good position to play these openings, at least for the first 10. And then in future videos, I'll try to get beyond that. But yeah, it'll be, even just the first 10 moves will take me probably 3 to 4 videos per part. So it could easily be a 15 plus video series this. So if you've watched my previous opening repertoire series, it's definitely not a waste of time or anything, but this is sort of going to replace that, be more comprehensive and more more detailed. So I'm going to start with the Catalan, and that arises by 1d4, d5, c4, e6, and then previously I've recommended knight c3, but here knight f3 leads into the Catalan, and then after knight f6 the idea is to play g6, bishop g2, and that's what we're doing. Yeah, that's what we're doing for the first 5 moves always. So yeah, after g3, black has 3 main options, and the main one, which is going to take up probably the next video or 2, is d takes c4. However, there's also bishop to e7 and bishop b4. But I'm going to start off with d takes c4. So that's really the first, I guess, fork in the road, and we continue with bishop g2. And then here there's quite a number of variations that can occur. So we're 5 moves deep, and I want to look at 5 moves of probably another 5 several variations. So, but it's not too confusing. I mean, there's multiple knight moves that can occur. There's c6. This might get too many arrows. There's bishop d7. There's bishop b4 check. There's pretty much everything. There's even c5. There's b5 holding on to material, a5, b5. Let's get rid of some of these arrows. It's ridiculous. But yeah, there's quite a few, but hopefully it won't be too difficult. And sort of our goal here is getting 10 moves deep. So I want to start off with bishop d7 and have a look at what we're doing. And the thing is as well, a lot of the moves for white are fairly intuitive and fairly logical, and also, yeah, there's reasoning and justification, so we can remember it through actually understanding what's going on. So we're playing knight e5, which is which does happen in the Catalan a fair bit from what I've seen, and the idea of this is to simply threaten to take back the material on c4 straight away. And in this variation for knight d7, I'll just also mention before I go into the variation, we're also attacking b7. So yeah, we should be familiar with the weapons of the Catalan. We've just got this super strong bishop, and when we spring the knight up, we're kind of unlocking it and unleashing it. So in this variation with the bishop on d7, we continue with black continues with bishop takes c6, and obviously here we can't take c4 because the bishop's hanging. It's quite simple. We take on c6. After knight takes on c6, we castle, and then black has sort of 3 main options for serious moves, and this leads us to, I guess, the last fork in the road, so to speak. So not chess fork, but yeah, just the differences in what can happen. So bishop d7, bishop e7 is one, queen d7, and there's also knight d5. So those are the 3 main options for black. So let's have a quick look at bishop e7, and just remember there's the move list and order on the right hand side here, so you can sort of recreate this and learn it in your own time. But you'll start to see a lot of this stuff is recurring, and a lot of the stuff is fairly easy to remember that isn't recurring. So that's hopefully the goal in these videos. Alright, but let's have a look at this bishop e7, and the response to this is queen a4. pinning the knight and the idea is to get back the material on c4. Generally speaking, the concept of the Catalan is black takes the material on c4 to sort of make white waste some time getting it back, with, I guess, with these moves such as queen a4, etc. But we're almost always getting the material back. In some variations where black tries to hold on to it, it can be a bit more complicated, but generally we're getting this material back. And let's just have a quick look, and you might think, well, what about d4? Isn't it hanging? Let's just have a quick look and why it's not. And that's simply because of bishop takes c6, and then this would just be very bad for black. So so yeah, that material isn't hanging, and it's important to keep that in mind, because in many other variations when it is, we're often playing e3. But yeah, this move is very common. e3 is very common, which we'll see next move. So then after, from here, black almost always castles, and we're playing e3, and we're 10 moves deep here, so we've achieved our goal here. So I want to look at other variations, but this is very common. So playing e3, but remember we didn't need to play it initially because that wasn't really hanging, and that's because of our strong bishop. So yeah, sometimes a lot of the difference is when we're playing e3 in a lot of the variations. That's why I say hopefully it won't be too difficult to memorize, even though there's a lot of future variations. But yeah, from this position, there's a lot of sort of nice things that can go on for white. A whole lot of different varieties of play we can play, but I think once we're 10 moves in, we're pretty solid here. Alright, so I want to go back to so there was, from here there was the option of bishop e7, which we just had a look at. There's also queen d7, as I talked about, and knight d5. Yeah, knight d5. So I want to have a look now at queen d7, and on this variation as white, we simply play e3, protecting the pawn, and the super mainline stuff is rook b8. So that's with the idea of moving the knight without leaving the pawn hanging. So do keep that in mind as well. You know, your opponent may not be familiar or might have some issues, and if he moves that knight, you know, definitely keep in mind, you know, that sort of stuff. But yeah, so now I'll play is queen e2, attacking the c4 pawn, and just a good spot for the queen. And from here we've reached the 10 moves. So this is a solid position to be in if you can reach here. And yeah, you should expect some enjoyable and interesting games at least. Now, I would like to go back now, and so we've had a look at bishop e7, we've looked at queen d7, and the last remaining move, or serious move to have a look at, is knight d5. And just quickly, of course, there are quite a lot of other variations and continuations that aren't quite as good, but we do see. But I want to begin by going over the mainline stuff. Hopefully that will shed light on other stuff you might see that's incorrect by your opponent anyway. But yeah, in future videos I'll go over more stuff. But as you can see, there's already sufficient variations to go over. Alright, so let's move on. So knight d5 is the variation here. And from this point, we're simply playing queen a4. So using that same move again. Yes, strictly speaking, we didn't need to play e3 because d4 is not under attack, and especially once we've pinned the knight there. So after queen d6, we just play the simple idea of getting back our material on c4. So just simple sort of logical chess, and it's leading us to a good game and a good position. So I want to go back now and have a look at another variation. Before we do, let's just quickly recap. So the variations we just looked at all arose from bishop d7. From there we played knight e5, thematical stuff, we'll see that again, and yeah, bishop c6 we took, and then we got to this position where there were a few extra variations. So that's the way we got here. But now I want to have a look at the, so instead of the bishop d7, which we just had a look at, I want to look at c6. So just before, in my opinion, if you do want to play this and you're not very familiar with the Catalan, I do suggest you go over the move orders that I just showed before, because it is quite important, but I mean it is also quite simple. So really the majority of the stuff that has happened here, and that's fairly straightforward. There's really only the differences of now e3, there's queen a4 for the pin, and there was queen e2. But I do suggest you go over that if you are new to it, because I want to move fairly quickly. And now I'll have a look at the c6 variation. So there are so we looked at the bishop d7. There's c6 as multiple, which is why I want to go through over this fairly quickly. There's c6, there's b5 as I talked about earlier. There's a whole variety of knight moves, a couple bishop moves, etc. So let's get back on course. So c6. The simple idea of c6 is the intention to play b5 and holding on to the material on c4. And to this we respond knight e5. So just reusing our knight e5 move, which I talked about earlier, is fairly common. And from here there's two serious moves for black. There's bishop b4 and there's b5. So I'd like to have a quick look at b5 first. So b5 gives the pawn back by taking on c6 with the bishop. Of course, black can't retake because we have this strong Catalan bishop, and we would recapture with check, and we would pick up the exchange. So so from here, black plays queen b6. We play the surprising and funny looking knight a5, and just ties in with the concept of this strong bishop. And you might think to yourself, yeah, this variation I may not get, or at least not get for a long while, but yeah, I think it's worth learning anyway, because you sort of learn, I guess, concepts and what's available and what's going on when you've got this strong bishop from a8 to h1. But anyway, from here black has two main options, and that is to take with check on a5, and the other option is to play knight d5. So let's have a quick look.
Check.
If black were to take on a5, as white we respond bishop d2, and this variation gets a little bit tricky, but yeah, again, I think it's worth looking at. So black here plays c3, and we play b takes c3. Now as white, you've got the threat of winning a whole rook, and you've also got the threat of a discovered attack on the queen. Black here responds knight d5, closing or blocking that diagonal, and here we respond c4. c4, yeah, quite simply double attack, so we're looking like we're going to win our material here. Black plays b4, and we do win the material back. And after the recapture, yeah, we're 12 moves deep here, so I don't want to go further than that. I wanted to stay at 10, but for this variation we needed a bit longer. But the idea here for white would simply be castling. We're eyeing the we're closely eyeing the d5 pawn. Even in the cards is something like knight a3 here, which is quite interesting. So just quickly to have a look at a continuation. So maybe bishop d6. Yeah, we could play here knight a3. Of course, the queen couldn't take, and that's because of this super strong bishop after castling. The rook's hanging. So so there would need to be that sort of thing for black, and for the black pieces, and being careful of that bishop. So yeah, I definitely don't want to stop there for that variation, and I want to have a look instead of taking on d5 with the queen. Sorry, I should have gone back 5 moves there. Yeah, instead of taking on a5 rather, there's the option of playing knight d5 here. So we're 8 moves deep, just want to go 2 more moves with this, and after knight d5 here we play bishop d2, and then after something like knight c6 we're taking the knight, and then we're 10 moves deep here, so I'll normally stop it just to show you sort of the ideas. After queen takes, something like e4, and white's got, you've got a really solid game here, and a good position. Alright, now let's back up and have a look where we've come from. So So yeah, after this c6 move, which we're examining, we play the knight e5, and we just had a look at b5 and what that results in. And the other serious move that black can play is bishop b4. Now, to that we respond the surprising move of bishop d2. And this is surprising because it gives up the potential for a second pawn. Yeah, black can take, and that's one option. And the other option is to play bishop e7, but yeah, this sort of pawn sacrifice is sound. You get a lot of initiative and a lot of play in exchange. So let's have a quick look first at if black retreats to e7 with the bishop by simply playing e3, protecting the pawn. And yeah, even though we've looked at a lot of variations, just consider they're often a really similar skeleton position. There's e3, d4. We've got the bishop. We're attacking the c4 pawn to get back our material, and yeah, in this variation, black, the main line is to castle, and we just take back our pawn on c4. And yeah, the super mainline stuff is c5, and we just take on c5, and then of course bishop takes is the resulting position. But I want to back up. I don't want to go, so we're 10 moves deep here. So I want to start off with the 10 moves thing. But the other option that black can play here is, instead of retreating the bishop to e7, black can take the material on d4. So his 2 pawns up at this point. And here for white we play bishop takes b4. So it takes the bishop, and of course black responds by taking our knight. So we're still 2 pawns down. But yeah, what have we got in exchange for it? We're preventing black from castling, and we've got a nice move coming up as well. So we play this isn't such a great move, but yeah, knight a3, bit strange looking, but it attacks c4, and this is a move that actually is played in quite a few variations. So that's not that's maybe not as strange as it looks, but it does look a bit funny. And then after black holds onto the material with b5, we've got bishop d6, and this just, I mean, that you can tell that just looks really good. We're attacking the pawn on c5. So if the knight develops, on c6, we're attacking the pawn on c6, and if the knight develops, that's dropping. Yeah, potentially as well. We're stopping castling. We're getting a tempo on the queen, so you can tell there's a lot of play. There's a lot of play for these 2 pawns. There's some weak squares, and there's quite a bit going on for black. This position, for white, and this position, there's definitely compensation, or adequate compensation. Alright, so those were the 2 options, and that concludes this video for this part. But let's just have a recap of what we had to look at. So I'll just take it all the way back here. So yeah, 1d4, d5, c4, standard stuff with e6. We're playing knight f3 to get into the Catalan. After knight f6, we're playing g3, and this is where I talked about there being a lot of options for black. Well, mainly the option being to take, and the other options, there are a couple, but not as many, so that's the majority. And after bishop g2, so this is just a recap. Today we looked at bishop d7 as an option, and also c6. And for next video, I'll be having a look at, so let's get rid of those lines, so that's what we looked at today. And for next video, I'll be having a look at knight b to d7 and bishop b4. So that's the next video, but there'll probably be at least 3 or 4 videos just on the Catalan alone. But yeah, you'll see a lot of recurring stuff, a lot of stuff that explains the Catalan, and hopefully gives you more of a detailed explanation. Is maybe a bit easier than sort of reading hundreds of pages. But I hope you enjoyed that, and yeah, thanks for bearing with me. I'm also learning it myself, so there's it's a bit of a learning curve for me as well. But thanks very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to next video. Okay.